Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about an epic rivalry. A war, really, that completely changed how we think about modern software.
So, in this wild new world of cloud computing, things got messy. Applications didn't just live on one server anymore. They shattered into hundreds of tiny pieces, microservices. And figuring out why something broke, well, that suddenly became a multi-billion-dollar question. And the answer? It's a concept we call observability.
And you better believe a few companies wanted to own that prize. 4, to be exact. They started a war for it. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the 4 Horsemen of observability: Dynatrace, New Relic, AppDynamics, and Datadog.
All right, so first things first, we got to understand the battlefield they were all fighting on.
Look, this was a massive shift. Software moved to the cloud, and the old tools just broke. They couldn't keep up. You went from these nice, simple applications running on one server, maybe in a closet somewhere, to these crazy, complex systems spread all over the place. The old way of doing things, it was like trying to find one specific broken light bulb during a citywide blackout. It was chaos for developers, and it was costing businesses millions in downtime. And that created this huge, gaping hole in the market. So, who stepped up to solve this mess? Let's meet the 4 rival kingdoms that rose to the challenge, each with its own totally unique DNA.
Okay, so what's really interesting here is how they all started from completely different places. I mean, they were all trying to solve the same big problem, but they came at it from totally different angles. You've got Dynatrace, founded way back in 2005, going super deep into what we call APM, Application Performance Monitoring, for Java and .NET. Then New Relic comes along and says, hey, let's just make this a simple cloud service, a SaaS tool. AppDynamics, founded the same year, they went after the big fish, the enterprises with their own data centers. And then you have Datadog, the new kid on the block in 2010, focusing squarely on the new world of cloud infrastructure.
And the personalities of the founders? They're written all over these companies. You have Dynatrace, this Austrian engineering powerhouse, born from the ashes of the dot-com crash because its founder was just obsessed with fixing things. Then there's New Relic, the classic Silicon Valley story. The founder, Lucerne, get this, his name is literally an anagram for New Relic. How cool is that? Then you have AppDynamics, founded by Jyoti Bansal, a guy who had the whole idea mapped out, but had to wait 7 years for his green card before he could even start. Talk about dedication. And finally, Datadog. It was started by 2 French engineers in New York who were just fed up with the wall of confusion between developers and operations teams. They wanted to tear it down.
Okay, so how did they actually fight this war? Let's talk about their secret weapons, their tech.
So right off the bat, you have these 2 totally clashing philosophies. On one side, you have Dynatrace. They believed in a single, all-knowing agent, the one agent, and a causal AI that could find the precise root cause of a problem. Not just symptoms, the actual line of code that broke everything. Think of it like a detective who finds the exact culprit. Then you have Datadog. They took the opposite approach. They said, let's just pull in all the data, metrics, traces, logs, everything, from our massive ecosystem of like 750+ integrations. Then they'd use machine learning to spot weird patterns, the anomalies. It was less of a detective and more of a neighborhood watch pointing out, hey, these things look suspicious and they all happened at once.
And that wasn't the only conflict. You had this other battle going on between AppDynamics and New Relic. AppDynamics was all about the money. They didn't sell to engineers, they sold to the CFO. Their whole pitch was built around this idea of the business transaction. They could literally connect a server's CPU spike directly to dollars and cents of lost revenue. It was powerful. New Relic, on the other hand, they were for the developers. They focused on making easy-to-use tools that engineers would love. And later, they made this huge bet on being open, embracing standards like open telemetry. Their message was about freedom, not just ROI.
So you've got these technical battles, these philosophical battles, and you guessed it, it all spilled over into a massive pricing war.
And man, you can see who was winning that war, at least at first. Look at this. Datadog's model was just viral. It was so easy for a single developer to get started with it, and then it would just spread like wildfire through an entire engineering org. And the result? They grabbed a whopping 51, almost 52% of the market. Absolutely dominant.
And this is a big but. That viral growth had a hidden, very expensive cost. Their greatest strength, that easy modular pricing, it turned into their greatest weakness. Why? Because you'd get these explosive, totally unpredictable surprise bills that would make engineering leaders just furious. You'd think you're paying for 10 servers, but then a traffic spike happens, the cloud automatically spins up 100 more, and suddenly your bill is 10 times bigger than you planned for. Ouch.
And who was watching this all happen? New Relic. They saw their opening and they pounced. They launched this brilliant counterattack. I mean, look at this quote. It's basically a direct shot at Datadog's pricing model. This move completely changed the game.
What did they do? They threw out their old, complicated pricing and switched to something dead simple, a flat rate per gigabyte, just 30 cents. The promise was crystal clear. Send us all your data. We don't care how much. You'll never get a surprise bill again. It was all about data freedom, and it was a really powerful message.
So, all this fighting, all this competition, where did it lead? Well, the endgame for these four kingdoms couldn't have been more different.
And this timeline, wow, it just lays out all the drama. You had IPOs from New Relic and Dynatrace, but then look at this. In 2017, AppDynamics gets acquired by Cisco for $3.7 billion, just 48 hours before its own IPO. That's insane. Then, a couple of years later, Cisco comes knocking on Datadog's door with an even bigger offer, over $7 billion. And Datadog says, no thanks, and goes on to have a massive IPO of its own. And then, fast forward to 2023, and New Relic, one of the original pioneers, gets taken private. You just can't make this stuff up.
So what does all this mean for today? Well, the war is far from over. The battlefield has just changed. For one, collecting the data, that's basically a commodity now. Thanks to this open standard called open telemetry, no single company can lock you in with their special agent anymore. Second, the line between finding bugs and finding hackers is blurring. Observability is crashing head-on into security. And the really big one, the next frontier, it's what people are calling agentic AI. We're talking about AI that doesn't just find the problem for you, it goes in and fixes it on its own, without a human ever touching it.
You know, the legacy of these four companies, it's literally the foundation that modern software is built on. But tech never ever stands still, which leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. As we move into a world where AI writes its own code, deploys its own code, and even fixes its own code, who are the horsemen of the next generation?